Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
Welcome, guys, to week 11. And you are turning the corner and you're almost done. But I will remind you, just like Dr. Stedman did last week, don't stop yet. You got a few more things to do. The work is just awesome that you're turning in. And we're first going to give you a little feedback on AAPTEL Task 2. Then we're going to review, just again, a short review of Task 3. That first draft will be due this coming Sunday. Then we'll talk about Task 4, which you already know what that's about and you know how to do that. That's just your reflections. Then we will go over again, briefly mention your research and development Zoom assignment for this week. And then we'll turn it over to Dr. Hamilton to finish up with folio and internship requirements. So, with that said, I had some very good task twos turned in. A lot of little minor revisions, but most people have already got those back into me and have gone ahead and put it. If you've not already, and I've cleared you to put it in the final drop box, get that taken care of so we can move on and have that behind you. And then the only thing you'll have to turn in for Sunday evening will be your task 3 for review and your reflection on your Zoom assignment. How did yours look this past week on Sunday night?
Uh, for the most part, very, very good. Though the ones that needed to, well, I would say 95% have responded back with the edits they need to make. And that has been very positive. I've had several that have cleared already. They've cleared task 2 and moving on to task 3. I've had some questions about task 3 already this week. Um, um, I was very pleased with. Let me put it this way: with everybody that completed the work and followed directions, I was pleased with the first draft or either the second draft of the work. But I did want to say this, Dr. Revis, before we moved on, because I've thought about this at this stage in where we are. And I thought about, that you wouldn't be in this program if you didn't want to be a principal or, at some point in your life. And some of you are young enough, future aspirations could be the superintendency. But at the central office level, those guys, there's a next step in your mind, or you wouldn't be with us. Um, Secondly, you signed up for an accelerated program. You knew that from the beginning. We told you from day one, and that there wouldn't be any slowing down. Now, I'm saying all that to say this. I want you to just think about this. If you were a principal already and your school was required to work on school improvement, and and this happens if you've got a school that is a high needs school, a low performing school, whatever. This is what we're doing now is required of you as a principal, you know, based on where your school is. And even if you're a high performing school, which Dr. Hamilton had a very high performing school, you can't stop there. There's always a challenge of putting a plan in place of the next. But if your superintendent asked you, said, okay, I'm Dr. Hamilton's superintendent, and I say, Dr. Hamilton, um, this is what I want from you. Um, I tell you this week on a Wednesday, and I'll tell you I want it by Wednesday of next week. I want it on my desk by 12 o'clock noon. Now, if I tell you, has that not happened to you, Dr. Hamilton? Has that not happened to you, Dr. Revis, where the
Well, Dr.
superintendent?
Stedman, I just have to offer. They usually don't say we want this by next Wednesday.
Right.
It's usually by the end of the day
Yeah, but
today.
I'm stretching it. I'm
You
stretching.
are stretching it,
And the reason I'm
exceedingly
stretching it,
stretching it, because usually it's like, oh my gosh.
well, the reason I'm stretching it is because that's basically what we're expecting of our students right now, from Wednesday, kind of like that. But, and you just, in your mind, you say, well, life happens. This happened. I didn't have time. When do you think your superintendent is going to accept that? Do you think they said, well, I just got busy doing other things. I didn't have time. Do you think? No, absolutely not. Now, our job, now some of you probably don't even like me, and that's okay. I hope you do, but if you don't like me for pushing and don't like Dr. Revis and Dr. Hampton, then that's okay. That's your prerogative. But we have been given the responsibility of trying to make sure that you are making sure that you are ready at the end of this 12 months to move in the direction of being a leader in a school system. Now, we would be, first of all, I would not, I'm cheating myself if if I if I don't hold you responsible for my value. I'm where I am today only because I worked hard. I followed directions. The same thing with Dr. Hamilton. The same thing with Dr. Revis. It didn't come easy. And there were a lot of times we had to put aside a lot of personal things because it comes with the territory, people. It just comes with the territory. And this is hard. This is a hard talk right now. But if you can't do that, if you're not willing to do that, if you think that it's just going to be, you need to reconsider this program. You need to consider going into administration. I mean, we're at the point now that you've really got to do some hard soul searching and thinking about this. So, and for many, I'm preaching to the choir, and I apologize, but I just felt like that all of you needed to hear this. But then, if you are one that um, you have not put into this program at this point what you need to do, then I'm not asking anybody to step out, get out. I'm just telling you, you need to think about it because it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any easier. It's it's an intensive program, and then once you leave this program, the work of an administrator is not an easy job. I don't want to paint a pretty picture. It's a very rewarding job. Um, it's a thankless job many times, but you do what you do out of the love of children and wanting to make a difference. I just want everybody to just take time and reflect on why. The very beginning, we ask you, why did you sign up for this program? Now, I want you to go back and think about it. And I'm not saying that you didn't mean what you said, but not everybody has lived up to what you said. But you've got time to redeem yourself. And I'm just asking you to show us that before we have to let go and send you on to 603. Now, Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Evans, guess what? What are 603 instructors going to ask us?
They always ask about how you did.
When they'll get their roster and they'll say,
Yeah.
and I'm going to use Megan for an example because she's right there, and Megan's done all her stuff, so I can pick on her. They'll say, Dr. Stemmen, I see where you had Megan Brown. Can you tell me some things about her as a student, her work ethic? We talk. Am I right, Dr. Hamilton? We talk. So
You are very right.
help me
And
be
these
able to
things
say the right things.
And these things also tie into, I'll just jump ahead of the agenda.
Go ahead.
They also tie into the competencies, right? So, like personal
Exactly.
responsibility for performance. right?
Exactly.
That is the epitome of that. Like turning your stuff in on time, being responsive to corrective feedback. That is what that is.
Right. And just, taking, as an administrator, you've got to take it seriously the first time. Sometimes you don't have a second chance. You don't have a second chance. So, you know, I love you still, whether you love me back or not. I love you still. I just want you to do well. We want you to do well. So I just felt like it was heavy on my heart. So I've said what I need to say, and we're going to move on. Okay. Thank you for your feedback too, Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Revis. So let's Dr. Uh, Revis, let's move on to task 3 and let's do a quick review. Several have, I think, several have really begun work on that. And let me see, where are we? Here we are. Helpful hints. Um, there are some things, Dr. Revis, after we go over the requirement. There's some pointers at the end that I've thought about that, and when I do, you and Dr. Hamilton just chime in there and reiterate it too once we get there. But Dr. Revis, if you would just begin leading us off on a review of the requirements for task 3.
Okay, so task 3 is where you lead your PLC into developing that teacher leadership and empowerment growth plan. Remember, it's all about teachers, not about students. And one of your culminating activities is, of course, can you scroll back up just a minute, is to provide a presentation. It says to your school improvement team, but we talked about that a little bit yesterday or
Well,
last week.
that Dr. Revis, that's where again I've talked about. Um, I went back and looked, and I looked at what the evaluator is going to look at, and it says that they must have a recorded presentation. It
Okay.
says that. Now, that we can't change that. Now, if you've got a principal that says you can't record this, then the only thing we can ask you to do is to do the best you can to ask them, for that, get some picture, get something, but it needs to be recorded because that is a requirement of Gardner Webb. It's a requirement. This program was approved by DPI, and this is what DPI has said that you must do based on how this program was written initially. So I look back. So I'm afraid that if we say that you don't have to record this in your presentation, I'm afraid that some evaluators will mark them down, Dr. Revis.
Right.
So
But be sure
anyway, go
be
ahead.
sure your presentation has all the four parts. You must report a brief overview of the best practices that you did in task 1, a visual checklist, or you've got 2. That means you report in your presentation your walkthrough form and your survey. You lead them through your gap analysis, just like you did in the task 2, and then finally present the growth plan that you are developing this week in task 3. So, yeah, if you can record it, that you need to try to record it. But I know I've had at least one person tell me they were on spring break this week. If your school is on spring break, for my class, you still need to turn everything in. You need to put in your PowerPoint slide deck, everything except for your recorded presentation. And
And
I would,
Dr. Revis, would they have to put a disclaimer in there and let us know when they plan to
yes,
do that?
right. So I'm hoping that's going to be everything that you need to do. I hope, some of you were on spring break last week. So, and we worked around some things there, but make sure that you do have a disclaimer if you don't get to have your presentation this week.
But
So,
you need to tell us when you're going to do it, when
and
it's
that would
planned,
be in
when
your
it's scheduled.
disclaimer, in your narrative,
Yeah.
okay? So, task three, very quickly, you need to give a little introduction, and I would say that that introduction needs to recap the areas that you're going to address in your growth plan. And there are 10 headings then that you get into, and these are very similar to the ones you did for the APSL, not exactly the same, but very similar. And there are your headings. And we're going to look at different examples from those. And then your graphic organizer that you use, you must use the template. There are no ifs, ands, and buts. I always recommend leading your PLC through the template when you meet with them. And then you can do the writing either, you can have some of it done beforehand or either right afterwards to fill in all of those headings. So let's look at some of those headings. Again, provide a lead in so that when I look at task three, I don't have to wonder about what did you identify as gaps in task two. Do a little introduction. Then the second heading would be the importance of an action plan. Now, I like to see a little research in here, not just what you feel is important, but what does the research say? Dr. Uh, Dr. Stedman, what do you think on this?
I
You want to,
agree. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, I mean, Whitaker's your go-to guy with teacher empowerment. So I know you've got to find things there on Whitaker. But anyway, you write up the importance of an action plan, as the research says. Then the second heading, or rather with your third heading, is about your vision for a positive school environment. Again, this can be a blend of what you see as the positive school environment, but also I would expect it at least one reference about the importance of that vision. Why is it important that we create that vision for a positive school environment?
Dr.
Again,
Revis, Dr.
yes.
Revis, again, remember in task one, remember that everything you did was what the research says. It was what the research says. When you got to task two, that actually was the difference. The gap was this is what is actually happening in my school based on your surveys. So this, when you're doing the narrative work here, you are combining, not doing a repeat of everything, but you're pulling out the best of the information to share in your presentation of a vision for positive school environment based on what the research says, and then you know you're actually sharing. This is when I did my walkthroughs, when the survey, this is actually what our school looks like, or this is what our teachers are saying about a positive school environment. You talk the talk there.
And of course, this is all about teacher empowerment. So I hope that you say your vision is to increase teacher leadership and empowerment. And we've again, there's Hattie, there's Whitaker. All those authors will help you weave in some of that research. And then your documentation to support your identified needs. That's just where you talk about your walkthrough and your survey results. Those two pieces of data are your documentation. And you just discuss that. And then the next section, list of strategic indicators of success. How are you going to know if the plan is successful? And you would pick indicators of success. Those indicators, they have a column all on its own. I would expect to see quantitative indicators. Some people always say they want to give the Whitaker survey again at the end of the school year or at the mid semester of fall. of 25. But what are your indicators of success? How will you know if this teacher leadership and empowerment plan is successful? Remember, it's not about student data at all. This is about teacher data. All right, the next section is specific short-term and long-term goals and objectives. Of course, you will name the activities, and then there's a column for you to put in whether that's a short term or a long term. Short term, I think, would be something that you would be doing this semester or summer, and a long term would be next school year sometime.
Now,
So you
Dr.
just,
Revis, and this is a good time for me to say one of the things that I wanted to say. When you look at that rubric that the evaluators are going to look at, it clearly says in there that you have to show evidence of implementation of this plan this year. Now, you know that we're getting on into the school year, and there's a lot of things that you're not going to be able to do based on the time of the year. However, this is where, and then when you do your narrative at the very end, when you bring it all together, when you talk about your presentation, because you've got to say, my principal has is supporting blah blah blah. You may not can implement that entire plan, but your
right,
narrative work has got to clearly talk about what you can do now. And when you are doing your when you're putting that plan together, you make sure you deliberately put stuff in there that you can do now, that you can implement now. And then if it's, let's say it's professional development in a certain area, and the professional development cycle is already over with for this year, then you would say that the my administration and my school improvement team are taking in consideration looking at implementation, beginning planning in the summer and implementation in the fall for the 2025-26 school year. You're going to be safe if you show that you're moving in that direction. Then what if your principal just says, I'm not going to do any of this? Well, then you simply say it. You simply say, that, and I would hope that they don't do that. But we've had it to happen, haven't we, guys? Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Evans. So if it happens, you've done your part. You just put in there that, that I presented. My principal said that they were not interested, blah, blah, blah. And then, you move on. But you might want to talk about how, working with your personal PLCs, with your grade levels or whatever, that you will pursue implementation of as much of this as you can, with your grade levels, or, with teams of teachers, as you can. But you've got to show proof, clear proof of implementation of what you're presenting. Okay.
okay, so that's where you talk about your specific short-term and long-term goals. Now remember, this is the narrative work. It explains your graphic organizer. So don't just say, see graphic organizer. No, 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 no. You narratively explain it and describe everything that says on that graphic organizer in your narrative work.
Now, another caveat, Dr. Revis, Dr. Hamilton, is remember, you will make a presentation, and you're going to be as honest as you can, but remember, you've got to be sensitive to your administration. You've got to be sensitive to things. You say what you need to say, but you don't say too much. Dr. Revis, am I right on that?
Right.
You've got to be careful how you say things.
Okay. And so the next section then is activities to address your identified goals and objectives. And you should have no less than 5 activities, one from each of those 5 areas. Um, and you may have more because one of the areas, for example, professional development, it may have a couple activities. First, you're going to interview, or excuse me, survey all of your staff to find out professional development activities, and then you're going to implement professional development or professional learning in the fall. So, according to that survey result. So, you know, you need to have at least one activity for each of those 5 areas. All right. Now, I know this example does not do that, and we'll talk about that when we get to the graphic organizer. The next section is how are you going to communicate the progress, excuse me, to your vital stakeholders. So, how often are you going to update the staff, parents, key stakeholders on how well you are doing within your plan? And so you will start with a presentation probably with all your staff, and then how often will you update your staff on how well you're doing? It may be that you don't update your staff again this year. It may be that you wait until the fall, mid-semester in the fall, to do a resurvey. All right, and the next section, specific timeline of activities. You know how to do that, of course, when you're going to implement the different activities that you've put out there. And then the next section is about, let's scroll on down. Okay, the next section is how you're going to get the buy-in. What is the plan to get stakeholder involvement and buy-in? And remember, for principals, this is the hard part. We can develop plans all day long, put them on the shelf. Don't do anybody any good. But the hard part is how do you get stakeholder involvement and buy-in? And then you have your specific roles and responsibilities. That's pretty well self-explanatory. And then we have a section on formative and summative assessment criteria. This is not about students. Shouldn't see anything about EOCs, EOGs, state assessments, interim formative assessments. This is all about how are you going to do formative and summative assessments for your teachers? How are you going to monitor that plan? Formatively means ongoing. Summatively means at the end or at a targeted checkpoint. And then you have your presentation. This is where, if you haven't gotten to that presentation yet because of spring break, you need to put a disclaimer or you need to go ahead and put a link to your presentation. This actually is a link to her video. So we can see her presentation slides. If you are not able to do a recording, then in your appendix or appendices, you will need to put each of your slides. You may can put a page with, 6 slides. They need to be readable, but you need to make sure that you got that as a last resort with some pictures. All right, and here's your action plan. You should be very familiar with this. And again, you see down these activities. We used to be fine with these, but then we had an evaluator come back to us and expect to see some type of activity in all 5 areas. Am I correct, Dr. Stedman?
That is correct.
So at least one activity in each area. Some areas you may have more than one. All
And
right.
and with this, we say a minimum of 5, but it's okay with this plan. If you have eight, it's okay to have eight, you know, just
Just Yeah, just be sure you don't leave blank any of the columns
right.
or any of the rows. It has to be completely filled out. And that's it.
Okay. Dr. Revis, Janique has her hand raised.
Yes, Janique, how are you?
Good evening. I'm well, thank you.
Good.
I so you said um that we had to pick something like one goal in at least each of the five sections, right? But
One
what
act,
if the
one
one
activity.
activity,
Hmm.
but what if the data is showing like that this section that other sections need more or this section may not need to be improved like we're showing as in regards to the survey data, this section is proven like okay we do that one thing right. I'm not saying like I have us two sections but there is one section that we did very well on,
I
so I
think you
don't.
I think you need to make sure you put that in your narrative and that's well
Okay.
pointed in your narrative. And
Okay.
um on the sections in the sections where you do have need, you would need to have multiple activities.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking because in one of the sections we did very well and in one section we did like horrible in.
I saw that in your
So
data. Yeah.
so it's like I really was think and it's just like specifically for that one section. Like I could see how I could pull from the other sections, but it would feel like a stretch for one of the sections. Like
Well,
should I just
and
pull for the stretch or
well,
go?
let me tell you what you need to do. In my opinion, Dr. Stedman, will you scroll up just one little bit? Right before, right before you present your graphic organizer, figure 16, what's the last thing it shows? What? Okay. I would put right that last sentence and I would reference my figure below, figure 16 or whatever, and just say, there were no strategies or activities, excuse me, in this section because, but, and hope that the evaluator will pass that
Right.
on.
Now, and Dr. Revis, I'm going to be the devil's advocate, okay, on this. That is where Janique and the others, this is where you may want to do more than five.
Mm.
And I'm going to tell you why. You've got to be careful, even though you're doing great in an area, you've got to be careful because you can focus on other things so much and think, well, I'm doing well in there. And then all of a sudden, what happens, Dr. Hamilton? You start going backwards. So even in strong areas, you're always thinking about, ways that you can maintain and then go the next step, even in a high performing area. So, you need to think about that too, because if you don't pay attention to things,
Mhm.
sometimes it will start going backwards on you.
Good point.
Okay.
Any other questions on task 3?
I had a question. I'm sorry.
Hi, Amanda.
Um, Hi. I had a question. I had one area that was scored high, like Janique, but I ended up looking into how to make it even better.
Good.
Will that be okay? So
That,
I
That,
that,
made it one of my
I
that's
think
what
action
that's the,
steps.
I think
that's
that's the safest thing to do, Amanda.
I do
Okay.
too, Amanda. That's what I was referring
Yeah.
to.
Okay. I got the community involved on it instead of just the school.
Oh,
So
that's
I kind of
great.
thought outside of the box on that piece.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. So we'll be okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Danielle,
Danielle, how are you this evening?
Hey, I'm doing good. So question, if we do the video, then we do not need to include the slides in the appendices.
you do both.
You want
So
to do
you,
both? Okay.
We want
Do
both.
both. That's just a
okay,
Yeah.
safeguard. Okay.
okay.
We want both. Yeah. Because the reason being, Danielle, you've got your video there, but they may not click on it. but they still want to see proof of it. So you've got your other proof. So you've got both of them just in case. Okay.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you what, guys, evaluators don't spend a lot of time on these. And we know that. And that's why I may ask you to rearrange something so that evaluators, they won't look for things. It's got to be where they are accustomed to seeing different things. So that is a good point.
Right. But good questions.
Any other questions on task 3?
Okay.
Yes, I do. I have a question. So I just want to make sure I'm right. So we've already met with our team and we're on spring break. So we will need to meet with them again when we return or just put in our slots.
I don't know who's asking that question. I couldn't tell. Oh, okay, Jaquetta. Well, if you already have met with them to build your plan.
But Dr. Rivers, I can help with
Okay,
that
go ahead.
too. If Jaquetta, if or anybody, if anything we're saying, if you've met and anything we're saying has not been done, then you've got to fix it. I'm not saying you've got to do it all over again, but you've got to figure out a way that you've got to fix it. You cannot leave a puzzle piece out because that could be the difference between a 4 and a 3. Does that help, Jaquetta?
It helps. I'm going to have to put the disclaimer in there and then we'll have to
And
meet
that's okay.
again
That's
when
okay.
we come
We
back.
we we expect disclaimers, and we expect next week, some things having to be finished out. We understand that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And while we're finishing up task 3, guys, you need to go back in there for task 2. Some of you just have a little something that you needed to fix in task 2. I may have scored you at a 45 and told you need this to fix this little thing. And instead of going back in that review box, you're going straight to the final drop box. Well, you missed that opportunity in the instructor review box to make that 45 a 50. But if you skip that step, it's skipped. But you have until tomorrow night to fix that if you did that on task 2. I know of at least one person that that did that in task 2.
And Dr. Revis, that's if you submitted your work on schedule Sunday night.
Yes. Now you can't go back and redo task 1 and all that.
Right.
That ship has sailed. We're still in the task 2 review stage until tomorrow at 6 p.m.
Right.
So
And
don't, try to recover those points, is all
right.
I'm saying. And if you
And
don't care, that's fine.
right. And when you submit task 3 for review on Sunday night by 6 o'clock, we should see if you've met with your team, you feel good about your present, then by all means put it all in there. But we should have from everybody everything minus the presentation if that has not happened with that disclaimer. Everything, there shouldn't be anything else missing from task 3 other than the presentation if that has not happened.
And let me say this, your presentation slides should be in there,
Right. Because
but
you have presented that.
your actual recording of your presentation or
Right.
pictures,
Right.
you have to, you can put that disclaimer in. But again, you're not going to get the full 50 credits, but 50 points, but you recover those. So
Right. Right.
now
I have
But
a quick
anything else is
question.
missing, I'll mark you down.
Sorry.
Heather,
What if we have already met with our team, done the presentation, but did not do the video? Can we submit that and then put a disclaimer that we will submit the video the next week? I mean, not the next week, but like before the deadline's due, so that
yeah, that's
like
what we were talking about.
yeah, going
You do
ahead
that
and
in your work Sunday night and just say that you've got to go back and you
video.
got to go back and fix it. And
Okay.
and remember what we said, that the language says that it's your school improvement team.
Okay.
But we said to use the language school improvement team. So I'm not telling anybody to do anything wrong, but be creative to make sure it's your school improvement team, okay?
Okay.
Y'all are smart enough, you know how to figure that out. You know, with your PLCs, and then some members of your if you've got two members of your school improvement team, the others couldn't be there, but you've got your PLC, your administration, and your two members of your school improvement team, you're good to go. And remember, you're it's just a good time to follow up with them. Just pull your PLC together, Heather, and anybody else that applies to. Pull a couple of three of your school improvement team members there, and make sure administration's there, and just do a further talk about your presentation. Okay.
Now, if your administrator will not allow you to record it, you need to put that in there very clearly and move on.
Right. Okay.
Any other
I had one
questions?
more question. I'm sorry. Um, when we attach the slides, do we just put it all under one appendix
You
with the
can.
picture, or do I do it separate?
You can put, I would put no more than 6 screenshot slides, per page, because after that it gets so small you can't read them.
But is it under one
Yes, you can
one
keep it
okay,
under
Yes.
one.
Yes.
one
Yeah.
artifact? Okay, thank you.
So, Dr. Stedman, I do have a question. So, if I took pictures, well, I didn't take pictures, somebody else took pictures for me, would that work, or I need the recording?
It says a recording,
All
Jaquetta.
right. Okay.
So I would put my pictures in there, but I
Okay.
also I would meet with somebody and I'd have me a recording.
Okay.
Okay.
And guys, let's just reiterate, that's what the rubric says. Some evaluators will let you get by with pictures, some will not. I mean, if you want to chance it, I guess you can chance it. But you've done such good work, I'd hate to let that be the,
I wouldn't let it. Jaquetta's not. Jaquetta's gonna figure that out.
I wouldn't let that be the
I
determining
already know
factor.
Jaquetta. She's gonna figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we good? Are we good at this point about what you've got to do for task 3 at this point? Go ahead and get task 2 over with, finish it up, and get it off your plate, okay? Now, you don't have to do this week, but we're just going to just quickly remind you. Remember in task 5 of the APTEL that you had to reflect on 12 of the competencies, 21 competencies. And remember there's 21. So for task 4, and this is the last of the APTEL, there's only 4 tasks for the APTEL. You're going to reflect on the 9 remaining competencies that you did not reflect on in the APSL. And you're going to do the very same thing. You're going to just, and you remember, you've been in the program longer now, so you should have stronger narrative work. You're going to say, in my course, you're going to start out with your narrative, just talking about your experience with the APTEL and, your clinical experience, through the APTEL. And then you're going to lead into competency 1 of those 9, and you're going to say, in my coursework, during my clinical experience, so you're going to have 2 strong paragraph narratives for each of the competencies. And make sure that you've got you're diverse with what you say. I wouldn't want to see in these 9 competencies a repeat of something that you said with your first 12 competencies. Okay, it should be new and lived experiences with what you've done with your work with the APTEL and with your clinical experience. So this is no different than what you did with task 5. And again, you know the 12 that you did. There's not here. Well, here they are. This should be it.
Yeah, those are the 9 they need to do. Yeah.
But if for some reason, let's just say for some reason something got mixed up or whatever, you just make sure that your 9 are 9 different from what you did from the AAPTEL, okay? And there's examples again of that. So are there any questions about what you've, and I'm good. The reason we're doing this, some of you will go ahead and get started on this. I know that. But
Dr. Stephen, if I could just make one comment about these.
Sure.
When you talk about your clinical experiences, let's say that you share a clinical experience where you did walkthroughs. Well, guys, that was an experience you did for your APTEL. Unless you make it clear those were outside and above and beyond and separate from what you did in the APTEL. Any of this stuff you're doing for the APTEL, you can't write any clinical. It has to be other clinical experiences. Okay?
Okay, everybody good? And we'll remind you of this next week. But the only reason we're mentioning this is for those that that will be at a point that they'll want to look at. And this is something that when you may be somewhere and you've got 10 minutes sitting in the car. Well, that 10 minutes you can get a competency done. You know, while you're waiting on a child come from dance or a ball game or something like that. So, you know, those kinds of things. And Dr. Evis, we need to remind them or see if they have any questions about their APTEL research and development assignment. We went over it last week. Are there any, do you have any questions of Dr. Revis and me about that assignment? Again, it goes back to just like you did with the APSL. And you're talking about, actually, you can talk about the whole APTEL experience. Any of the 4, you can talk about what you've done, and you can also talk about, you know, where you are with the action plan, talk, you know, help each other out with that. We don't care as long as it's all about the APTEL experience. Okay.
And that write-up and reflection is due this Sunday evening at 6 as well.
Right. Let me again just remind you, let me share it one more time. Let me remind you that, let me minimize that. And well, I thought I had it.
I thought I was your co-pilot, Dr. Stedman.
Well, you are, well, I don't know. I can't, well, I thought I had it.
The agenda.
No, I thought I had pulled up. Anyway, it's okay. Just remember in Blackboard, you scroll down, um, you scroll down under assignments, APTEL assignments until you find the one for the, you know, for the Zoom experience for the APTEL, and that's where you will put all your work for Dr. Revis and me. Okay, Dr. Hamilton. Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Dr. Hamilton. Okay.
I know, sorry. Thank
Okay,
you.
gotcha. Okay.
How is everyone this evening? I'm glad to see you. I'm sorry, I was messaging some students with a Zoom. So I'm going to be Zooming a few of you. I've private messaged you, I've emailed, I've sent it back in the messages this evening for those of you who wanted a Zoom after this class. So we'll be doing that after class tonight, and that's good. That's a good thing. Sometimes it's just one small nuance of misunderstanding, right? That just takes a little feedback, and then you're just right on the right path, and that's what's important. And I would encourage you to always remember that
that same thing about your own students in your own class, that sometimes that's just all they need is that one little bit of individualized attention to be able to soar. And that's what we're here for, right? Is to make every single student soar and do the best that we can do. So right now, you should have 15 of your competencies checked off in task stream. You might have turned it in. You need to go back and look because you might have revisions to make. So make sure that you go back and look. Um, just because you submitted something doesn't mean that it doesn't need a revision. So go back and look for the revisions that you need to make. Right now in Dr. Stedman's class, I have 6 students who have turned in all 15 plus their midterm internship log. And in Dr. Revis's class, I also have 6 who have turned everything in and they're okay. So that means we have some work to do, right? On the 9th of April, so you should have 15 of your competencies turned in and checked off. On the 9th of April, you'll have due global perspective and judgment. On the 16th of April, you'll have due responsiveness and sensitivity. On the 23rd of April, you will have technology and visionary due. And also on the 23rd of April, you have your final internship log signed by your administrator indicating a minimum of 200 hours of internship work that are aligned with the categories which we have previously shared with you. So all that is very important that you look at that, you get that done, that you're getting that vast array of internship experiences. Again, we have provided for you the categories in which those have to be submitted. So you can't just submit 200 hours of bus duty. That's not gonna work. And you need experiences that are beyond that. So many of you are close, right? Um, but that is that schedule and that is in the calendar in Blackboard. So make sure that you stay on that schedule. I have emailed a couple of people who will be meeting with me after class tonight, Dr. Stedman and Dr. Revis, for us to look specifically at theirs so that we can just provide enough feedback, right? They're close, right? But we just have to provide enough feedback to be able to get them right on track. And so that's good and that's fine. And that's what we're here for. And so glad to be able to help you move on with this process so that you can have a clear understanding before you move into 603. The Gardner Webb program and process really is that intentional abandonment. So you had the sample for APSL. You didn't have a sample paper for the AAPTEL, right? So we provide like a lot of structures and support at the beginning, but then as you move through the course, the expectation is that you are becoming responsible for these things and you're gaining your understanding through the support that you have in 601 so that it doesn't require as much support in the future. And that's on purpose. And you'll do the same thing when you become a principal, right? With beginning teachers, you're going to provide them more support than teachers who have more experience and don't need that support. So we're here to help you and get you through that and get you on the right path so that you'll be successful in 603 and 605. And then we can't wait to hear about all the great administrative experiences that you have in your future. All right, Dr. Stedman, that's all I have.
Dr. Hamilton, I have a question.
Jenny, go ahead with your
Yeah, go
question.
ahead, Janique.
Um, so my principal got promoted like yay and boo at the same time.
Got what?
So he got promoted. So it's like yay and boo because he's leaving. So he's going to stay throughout the school year, but how is that going to affect like the second half of the internship?
So, and Dr. Revis and Stedman, just reach in here if you want, but when you get your new principal, right? I think that your CC1 will want to re-meet with your new principal, and you all have the meeting about that you're in this program and what the expectations are and the support that we're going to need from your new person for that. Any other comments about that, Dr. Stedman or Dr. Revis?
That's right. Make sure, Jenny, that he signs off on your clinical law for this semester.
For
Oh
sure.
yeah, so I would pretty much have him through the summer,
Okay.
but then, the new school year, planning of the school year starts like mid-July, and that's when I would officially be losing him. And so I'm
Right.
just concerned because I don't know who this new person is going to be. Like, what if they say no?
Well, they're probably not going to be
Is
able to
that
say
an
no,
option?
right? But I would say that go ahead and do all you can do. So someone asked this question and I replied back, but you can go ahead if you have finished your 200 hours for the spring semester. If you have finished your 200 hours, you can start counting your summer hours on May 1. So, but you have to have completed these hours first. But you can start counting your summer hours on May 1st. So, Janique, I would go ahead and start, and you're good. You're in good shape. You're one of the six, right, in your class. So you're in good shape. So you move forward and you go ahead on May 1 and you start collecting those hours and see if you can go ahead and get your 100. You have 100 in the summer because you have 200 again in the fall. That makes five. So you go ahead and try to go ahead and start getting your 100 from May until before he leaves in
Okay.
July. And then that way you don't have to worry about that. And then you just have your last 200 to worry about next fall.
Okay.
But again, I would reach out to your clinical coach one, ask your clinical coach one to please revisit with your new administrator and the expectations and duties because you just have one semester left when you get your new administrator, right? So I know that's unsettling. Dr. Stedman, you're muted.
Ask your principal if they will help you with the transition with the new administration. That will go a long ways. So just ask. And I think it'll be okay, Janique. I really do think it'll work out for you. We rarely have those kinds of problems with transitions this late in the game, so I think you'll be okay. Okay. Any questions in closing? So, Dr. Hamilton, you have asked some to stay on. Okay. If that's not you, then
I sent an additional Zoom link, so
yeah,
they'll
okay,
log
okay,
off and
gotcha.
go into the new
Okay,
Zoom so
okay,
that you
okay. Go
didn't get
off
held
and
up with
okay,
rendering
gotcha.
this.
Okay, so go. So let's sign. Everybody, you can sign off unless there's a question from somebody. And
Yep, check the chat to make sure you're not on that list. Right?
Doc, Dr. Hamilton, I have a question.
Okay.
On the log that we have already turned in, can we continue on that same log or do we have to do two
I want
separate
one
logs?
continual log
Okay,
so that at the end, thank you for asking that question.
okay.
So that at the end, you see the whole total 200 hours combined.
now, Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Revis, and I talked with someone. If for some reason you have an administrator, it's changed administrators in midstream, and you've got signatures on one, you need to talk with Dr. Hamilton because that may be the exception to the rule where you've got a signed document from one administrator, and then you'll have to have a separate signed
That's
document
right,
from
but you can
another.
still scan it all
Right,
together and have it
right,
in one
right,
uploaded document.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night. Thank y'all.
Dr. Hamilton, I want to ask one other thing before we go off. This is just really
Okay.
quick. Okay, this week, because we are on spring break, we have something called intercession at our school, where my assistant principal actually made me like the lead over the program for this
Nice.
week. So that's like 35 hours.
I'm sure it is.
Can I count that as
You
well?
sure
Just
can.
because when you said not all bus duty, I was like, oh God, I
No,
have
you're doing
35
all the
hours
things,
done.
right?
Yes,
You're making sure the children are in there, you're monitoring the instruction,
yes,
you're making sure that the remediation plan is in
yes.
place, you're
Okay,
making sure
perfect.
that the teachers are following the schedule.
Yes.
You're doing all the things. You're making the
Okay,
parent
perfect.
phone calls, you're doing the discipline.
Mm-hmm. We
You're
are.
the administrator of the intercession.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. That's great experience. I'm glad they're letting you do
It
that.
is. It really, truly is. Yes, ma'am. Y'all have a
All
good night.
right. Y'all have a good night. Bye.
Okay. Jamie, you have a question? Okay, got you. Okay.